On this video, we're going to be talking about how much I paid in total for everything from start to finish on that terrarium right back there. If you haven't seen, I actually made a video constructing this entire terrarium. I call her Genesis. And I went through and I showed you all of the different pieces that came together to create this ecosystem. But what I didn't do is I didn't talk about how much each of the pieces, all of the equipment, all of the wood, all of the substrate stuff and the plants and everything involved in that. I didn't actually talk about how much all of that cost me because, to be honest with you, I don't even know myself. So I've got my list of all of the different things that it took to build this terrarium right in front of me here. We're going to go one by one. There's a couple things missing from that list and I'll kind of add those as we go. So let's start with the obvious. Let's start with the actual equipment, the terrarium, the stand down here, the wheels on the stand, all of the stuff over there that makes everything work, as well as all the stuff up here that makes everything work. I used a Reptizoo 36 by 18 by 36, and this isn't the exact one that I have. I can't find the exact model that I have. This one has like a screen in the side, but I do remember paying this exact price. $39.99.99. I'm gonna round up just to make everything easier, so we're gonna add 400 for the terrarium. Next up, we'll go with the light. So this is what I ended up using, this Sansi grow light. I am happy with it, and that was $74.99. So let's add 75 to the list. Next up, we'll go with our AC Infinity Outlet AI controller. That is this thing right here that everything's plugged into. And basically what this thing allows me to do is it allows me to kind of monitor all of my temperature and humidity, which is pretty high right now, as well as control all of the different outlets, just right through an app here. So that thing was $100. Next up, we've got our Golf Mew 200 watt chicken coop heater. The chicken coop heater is something that's a little weird, and I talked a little bit about it in one of my previous videos, but it's what I'm using to heat the terrarium back there. So I am trying to keep this terrarium at like 82 degrees during the day and then like a 10-degree drop at night. And what I've been using to do that is I've been using this chicken coop heater, which conveniently just turned on for the video. And that chicken coop heater was $25.99. So let's do 26. And next up, of course, we have our Mr. Reptile misting system. Of course, the misting system includes the pump that actually pumps the water from our reservoir up into the terrarium and then comes out of these little Mr. nozzles. And that was $60. But I'm actually going to include one more thing in this because I also bought this little forehead doodad, just to have some more misters and some parts and some things like that, which we're actually going to be using in a future video because I've realized that I need them. But this was $14, so let's add another $14. So up next, let's talk about our fogger, as well as our magnetic ring phone holder. And just to show you what that is, this is the fogger right here. I actually am not using that at the moment. I'm trying to figure some stuff out with the fogger. But this goes up, and then I've got our magnetic little phone holder thing up there, you know, so the tube can spit fog into Genesis. There's one other little piece of that puzzle. I 3D printed a part to actually attach the fogger hose to the top of the cage. If you want to see about that, you can go back and watch the build video for Genesis back there. And I highly suggest you watch the build video for Genesis back there anyways, because it's a great video. So our fogger was $50, and the little magnet parts that I used to actually stick it to the top of the terrarium, those were $14. Let's see, what else do we got in here? I think I can do this rubber grommet kit. I used this rubber grommet for just one thing, and that was to bring that temperature probe that's in the back of the terrarium. I don't know if you can see that right there, but there's a little rubber grommet that I drilled into the top and I stuck the little cord through. And I had to have this random pack of 200 of them. So now I'll have them for the rest of my life. but that cost me, this big pack of rubber grommets cost me $8. Okay, let's stay with the equipment. Let's talk about the moving casters. The moving casters are what I attach to the bottom of the stand, and they allow me to kind of just wheel around the terrarium when I want. Again, I talked about that in the build video. And these moving casters cost me $50 for this set of moving casters. And it also comes with this little thing to kind of yank her up, and then a little set of stands so you can basically lift the terrarium up and like get the wheels under there. And it all came in very handy. But on the note of the moving casters and attaching them to the stand, I did purchase the stand online, but I don't remember where I purchased it. I think it was just like petco.com or something like that. And I remember that cost me $100. So let's add 50 for our moving casters and then another 100 for the stand. All right, let's go with our 5-gallon bucket dolly. If I'm gonna have moving casters to wheel the actual terrarium around, well, I better have a little dolly to move my reservoir bucket around. Obviously, these aren't necessary things, but these are things that were included in the build of Genesis back there. And that's what we're doing, is we're adding up the total cost I spent on putting this entire terrarium together. And the reason that I want to just include all of these little things, all these little details, is kind of to make a point that when you do build a project like this, just sort of keep in mind that it is going to take a lot of little odds and ends, especially at the very end when you're really kind of going from that, like, I've got the vision in my head, I know what I'm going to build, and now I'm actually going to do it. And then you're going to start thinking of all these little, you're going to do like Amazon purchases every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Oh, I forgot about that thing. Let me order that real quick. Oh, I forgot, this little tiny thing. Let me order that real quick. So our furniture dolly was $25.99. Let's add 26 to the total. I've got our 40mm USB fan. The fans are what circulate the air, and this is them right here. These are tiny little 40mm USB fans. And these little guys cost me $16.99. This is something I don't really have in here to show you, but our RODI filter. I use an RODI filter to create the purest water I can create. You plug it into your hose outside, you turn it on, it spits out like all of the wastewater, and then has another little hose that drips out all of the good water. And mine is like a 50-gallon per day. The RODI filter, they vary, but this one cost $70. So I think we're done with the equipment. Let me just see, we talked about the stand, we did the wheels, we did the controller, the fogger, the mister. The bucket I didn't do. Let's add $7 for the bucket, and then another $7 because I spray painted the bucket black, so it would be black to match everything else. We talked about the heater, we talked about the fans, the mister, the light. I think we're done with all of the equipment for Genesis. And now let's get into the actual stuff, the wood and the substrate, and then we'll move on to the plants and everything like that to finish this thing off. So to construct the little islands in Genesis back there, I used these filter foam blocks, I used some silicone, I used some great stuff foam all over the place, and let's just sort of add all of those up right now. We've got our rectangular foam blocks, our square foam blocks, our great stuff foam, and then our black aquarium silicone. I don't have a link for the black aquarium silicone, so let's start off by adding $15 for one tube of that. I paid $19 for this set of blocks, and then another $24 for this set of blocks. And again, those are just what I used to silicone together and create sort of like a mound that I could start carving and stuff. And it's how I built the structure of the terrarium back there. And then last but not least, we have our great stuff foam, one of the best and my most favorite terrarium products. And I used 2 cans of this, and it cost $13 each. So $26. $26 gets added to the total. Okay, now let's quickly talk about our thin super glue. And I'm also going to add in $2 for some cotton balls. This is what we use to sort of seal all the wood together. Again, in the build video, you'll see all about it. I bought a 2-pack of this super fast thin super glue, and that was $10. And then I get another $2 for the cotton balls. Next, let's check off our filter foam. The filter foam is what we're using as the false bottom. You can not really see it because the dirt's kind of blending in with it, but there's like a piece of 1-inch foam that goes all along the bottom. And this roll of filter media foam was $26.90. We're gonna give it 27 though, even though I don't really want to round up a whole 10 cents. Come on now. What's that? Who ends with 90? And then while we're talking about the filter foam, we might as well talk about the sculpting clay. Sculpting clay is what I use to sort of mold around those filter foam blocks. You can even see, I'm gonna fix this whole little dry area in the front in the next video or two here. But the sculpting clay is basically all over these little mounds in here to, you know, make them look more natural. I did one big block of this stuff, and that was $29.75. So we'll do $30 added to our total for our big block of sculpting clay. Let's talk about the stuff that went into the substrate on the bottom of the terrarium. We've got our peat moss from a local hardware store. I paid like $20 for a big bundle, like further than I have to stretch my arms outside of the screen here. And it's lasted me like a year or something like that. So let's add $20 to the total for our peat moss. Next up, we've got some sphagnum moss, some pumice stone, some cocoa core, and some cocoa chips. So the sphagnum moss, I got like bricks of this stuff. Again, it's another one of those things that's lasted me like years now. And this cost $32. Next up, I bought 18 pounds, just a big old box of this pumice stone, you know, succulent soil additive stuff. That was $34.99. I had $35 for the total for our pumice stone. We've got our cocoa core bricks. Comes in like an 8-pack or something like that for $26. And we've got our cocoa husk chips for $12. And then next we can talk about our dragonstone. Dragonstone is kind of hard to find. There's one buried in there somewhere. Mostly we used it down in the middle to build around our little rock formation. This one is currently unavailable, but I looked up my order back in 2023 and I paid $40 for 17 pounds of this dragonstone, which it's a little bit heavy, so it wasn't quite as much. I think it was like 5 nice big pieces, but $40 for that dragonstone. And then we've got our Mapani aquarium driftwood. This stuff is all of the more like basic wood, like these little pieces on the bottom. Everything that's kind of like on the bottom, not these beautiful manzanita pieces. We're going to talk about those next, but you know, to fill everything in, I used just a bunch of this Mapani aquarium driftwood because it just handles, it's made for aquariums and stuff, so it handles humidity really well. And all of this bottom stuff, I bought a bunch of different sets here for that. So I've got $31, $27, $16, $17 times 2, and $31. And I don't know what all that adds up to, but I'm plugging them into the total. Next up, let's talk about our manzanita wood. This stuff is all of the beautiful wood, all these nice pieces that actually make this terrarium what it is. These are custom picked pieces that I chose from a person on Etsy, and they were a bit of an investment. But before I show you what I paid for some wood in the terrarium back there, let me show you the store. It's called Peacemaker Ranch Co. And it's just super cool. I mean, you can choose between all your branch sizes. Let's look at some of the big ones. And you can just kind of, you can pick and choose what you want. This one's a beautiful piece right here, actually. It's a really cool experience. It's really beautiful wood. It's made for terrariums. Again, it can handle high humidity and all that sort of stuff. And it just looks, in my opinion. So for my first 2 pieces, I paid $192.15. And then for my second 2 pieces, I paid $150. And that looks like everything on the list. We've still got a few more things that I purchased for the terrarium that I'm going to talk about. For example, it's not a true ecosystem without all of these plants that are doing pretty decent in Genesis now that it's been about a month since we built her. And then we've also got animals in here that we're going to talk about as well. So for the plants, I did a couple different orders. I had these 3 terrarium plants for $25. And then I did another big order from one of my other favorite Etsy shops that I buy a lot of plants from, called Hertz Gardens. Here's Hertz right here. I like going into the terrarium section. And they've just got a lot of, not as many of your rare plants, but they've got a lot of the basic plants. So Hertz Gardens is great for like getting all of that filler stuff. All of these grasses, these sensitive plants, this eyelash fern, the Selangella back there, the mini oak leaf fig, the rabbit's leaf, the rabbit's foot fern, Swiss cheese plant, all of that stuff came from Hertz Gardens. And the total amount I spent on all of those filler plants, these ones right here, was $190. I've got one more order coming up here for a future video, just a couple more plants that I ordered. Thought I'd throw a little sneak peek in there. I bought that staghorn fern at a local nursery, as well as my favorite plant in the whole terrarium, our Florida green. I'm pretty sure I got the variegated pothos that I've got going on in there from my local nursery as well. And I don't remember the exact total, but I do remember spending about $75 at my local nursery. So we'll add that to the total as well. Now from frogdaddy.com, I also got a Margravia package for $40. And I got this Trialina obliqua for another $25. You can see the Margravias right in there. I've got a little one growing right down in there. One is pretty happy in that little, in between those logs. And then I've got another one in the back. It's doing all good. That $25 plant, it's not doing very good. In fact, it died on the way here. And I just sort of shoved it right in to where that staghorn fern is. And I don't see anything anymore. So maybe we'll have that one come back to life and just magically reappear. But for now, you know, that was kind of a waste, but we've got to add it to the total anyways, because it was part of the cost of the initial terrarium setup. And you should expect to lose a couple plants and some things here and there as well. I will give you one other little sneak peek of some stuff. I'm not going to show you pictures or anything, but I got some other stuff coming from Frog Daddy. We're going to be doing something that we've never done on this channel before together in a very soon upcoming video, as soon as I get the stuff in the mail basically. But I think that's pretty much it. We went through the entire list. We talked about everything in here, from the equipment to the substrate to the wood to the plants to everything except one last thing that I haven't mentioned yet. That's of course the most exciting things in the tank. Oh, this camera is really not great at like finding them, but we've got 3 neon day geckos in here. Got one running up by the back there. This guy wants to be on camera, I think. Can I focus on you? There we go. And another one's little tail sticking out back there. And then in addition to those 3 neon day geckos, I've also got 3 of these tiger leg tree frogs, which are just nicely blending in with the leaves right now. I've got another one right here. And I bought all of those things together in like a group deal package, as well as some isopods that I threw into the terrarium to sort of get my isopods, some dwarf white isopods going in there, and a pack of springtails and some feeder insects and all that stuff. For all of those animals that I put into the terrarium, I got them for a great deal at $400. So let's add our final $400 to the total cost of what it took to set up this terrarium behind me from start to finish. And if I did my math correctly, we're at $2,578. So if you're looking at building something similar to this, again, this is like a 36 inch by 36 inch by 18 inch. It's like a 100-gallon terrarium, complete with all of the setup and the controllers and the misters and the buckets and the animals and all of that sort of stuff. I would say you could probably expect to spend around that same amount, somewhere between like $2,000 and $3,000. Now, of course, there's a lot of things you could do cheaper. You don't have to spend like, $350 on manzanita wood like I did. You don't have to, necessarily have a $100 controller like that attached to the bucket over there. You can use like built-in timers and different things like that. You can get used equipment. You could probably do this whole terrarium for like under $1,000 if you really were trying to like get used stuff and you were scouring Facebook Marketplace and all those sorts of places to find a good deal. But I wanted to show you what it would cost to actually put something like this together if you were to do it all brand new from scratch. And I think that $2,500 mark is a pretty fair conclusion to come to, what you're going to spend if you put something like this behind me together. So I hope that was interesting. It was enlightening for me, to be honest with you. It was about what I expected. And yeah. Okay. Are we done with this video?